All right, this is part 2 of coloring line art. At this point, you should have finished the flats. In other words, every major area has been filled with a color using the steps we talked about last time with the polygonal lasso and filling it in with the paint bucket. And you have your tools all set with a tolerance of 2. Make sure that's set with a tolerance of 2. The paint bucket should be the wand and the paintbrush. Well, we'll talk about the paintbrush in a minute. Okay, so anyway, this is what you've got, and we're gonna make a copy of this. First thing I'm gonna do is unlock this background layer and turn it into layer 0. Then I'm gonna duplicate the layer. I can just do that at the top right of the layers panel, clicking on those horizontal white lines, go to duplicate layer. And on the duplicate layer, I'm going to name it flats. And this layer is going to always stay like this. It's never going to get any more detail. No highlights, no shadows, no more detail than this, because I'm going to use it for selection purposes. Because down here on layer 0 is where all the highlights, the shadows, everything's going to happen. And if I need to select a big area again, I'll have the flats layer to get it with. And you'll see what I mean by that in a little bit. Okay, so I've got my flats layer. I'm going to hide it for now. And I want to show you how I'm going to work. Let's just say that I want to work on the cape. Okay, so I'm going to get I can actually be on the flats layer. I can get the magic wand, take contiguous off, and just click, and I've got all of the cape right there. Okay, and then let's just say I want to start doing some highlights on the cape. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy layer of just the cape, and here's a quick way to do it is Command J, and it's called layer via copy, but Command J will give you notice that selection on a transparent background. That's going to allow me to put highlights on here and not affect any of this, the background stuff. Okay, and that's not all. I can make it even easier by locking the transparent pixels right here where it says lock transparent pixels. What that does is it will allow me, and I'm going to use a bizarre color like red just to show you. I can just start painting kind of carelessly, and it's not going to go. Here you go. You can see it's not going past the cape. It's only on the cape. It's not going out into this area because I've blocked the transparent layers, or the transparent pixels. All right, so that's horrible. I'm going to undo that, but that was just to show you what's up. Okay, so I'm going to use this layer to put highlights on. I think I'll just go ahead and put the black channel on there because it's really cool to watch it. And the color I'm going to use, let me use a lighter version of the cape color. So I've gotten this eyedropper to click on the cape color, and so now that's my foreground color. And if I go to colors, I can get a lighter version like that. There we go. And then I can get the paintbrush, and I could just paint with it normal, but there is a mode called screen, and watch what it does. It lightens the color, and I'm going to show you how it's different than using white. Alright, so here I'm going to go and use white, and like if you just use normal and white, you get a different effect. Look how it's, I mean, it may not be a bad effect, but white, as you probably know from Basic Design 1, it makes the color less pure. It'll lighten it, but it's like adding white to it. Whereas what I had before, when I had a light version of this color and used, with the paintbrush I used screen mode, it lightens it, but it gives you a pure, it maintains the purity of the color. You know, and sometimes you're going to want white, but you know, if you want that color to be pure, do it this way. Use the screen mode. And I'm going to go ahead and put those highlights where I think they should be, like on the eyebrow ridge, maybe on this side of the nose, because I've determined that, you know, color's coming from the top right because of these shadows, the way they're cast. Alright, and then might keep that in shadow. Maybe a little bit more on the ear. Okay, like so. Alright, and I might be kind of happy with that and decide that that's the way it ought to be. Okay, and so I'm done with that, and I can just I want to keep the number of layers low. I want to keep it down to 2 layers. So I'm going to move this layer down, this layer of the highlights on the cape, and I'm going to go to merge down, and now it's part of this layer. And here's what's great about flats. I can say, well, you know, that the color of the cape is just all wrong, and I could get the magic wand and try to get it, but I'm just getting parts of the layer because I've already done the highlights. I've already changed the detail, and so it would be, you know, it takes some time to get that whole thing. But that's where flats comes in. I just click on the flats layer. I don't even have to show it. It's you know, that it's not showing, but I get the wand and I click on the cape, and I've got this whole area now. And I could go and I could make adjustments. I could go click on adjustments. I could do hue saturation. I could even do colorize, and ooh, I got kind of a purple. Yeah. All right. So I might decide I like his cape to be purple. All right. And so I'm done. And I think I just turn it off. Yeah. Okay. But I don't want to leave this as a separate layer. Again, I want to keep things to 2 layers. So I'm going to drag this down to just above layer 0, and I'll merge it down like so. So you can make adjustments, but just make sure that after you make the adjustments with the adjustment layer, merge it down to layer 0. So you're still with 2 layers. And you've always got the flats. They're always pure flat color, so you can make selections with it. Okay, so here I can just do a little bit more. I might select the skin tone. Okay, and then again, Command J. So I've got a layer, and then I've locked the transparency. I'll get the skin tone. I might get a darker version of the skin tone for shadow. Get the paintbrush, and I won't use screen for this because I actually want to darken it, so I may do normal, play with the opacity, and then just say, all right, well, this part of his face is in shadow, so I'll darken it. Maybe it's a little dark there, maybe it's really dark there, these kinds of things. But I'm not even being very careful because I've locked the transparency. Okay, so I can move this down, and again, merge down. Okay, so that's the great way that making a transparent layer where you lock the transparency allows you to do highlights and shadows and detail without having to be super careful. Okay. Another thing you might want to do, or you often will want to do, is to do highlights that are hard-edged. You know, they're not smooth. You can get the polygonal lasso, and I would do these on a new layer. And let's just say that you feel like, you know, this part of his pectoral muscle should have a highlight where light's striking it. Okay, and then I might work with white and paint there. And then let me There we go. Okay. And I might say, well, that's a little harsh. So I get the eraser, maybe soften that edge if I need to. And since it's on a separate layer, I can say, well, that's just entirely too white. I can lower the opacity, get it the way I like it, and then I can merge that down. Merge down. Okay. You might have things that, particularly on metal, let me zoom into maybe this, the drill here. You might want a hard-edged highlight. So you would use the polygonal lasso. And again, I would recommend doing it on a new layer first and then getting this. And then you can just do something like that. And now it's a hard-edged highlight. And you can adjust it however you want. Smooth part of it. Make it not super opaque. Then merge it down. Okay, so you can see now that this is how you'll make your highlights and your shadows. So I want you to keep working on this and start making highlights and shadows and details like this until you are pretty happy with what you have. Okay, don't worry about gradients. We're gonna in the part that's part 3. We're gonna do a background gradient and a couple other things. But right now, just worry about highlights and shadows.